Hi there, welcome back to the channel. I'm Julian and you're now watching the Uruguayan Polyglot. If you're into language learning, then you might consider subscribing. During the last 8 years of my life, I've always been learning some foreign language. This long time span has allowed me to experiment with a few learning methods, some of which have proven to be more efficient than others. This video is all about the inefficient ones. Today I'm going to talk about the biggest errors I've made when trying to learn foreign languages. I'll start off by describing the mindset problem that I deem to be at the very root of the 3 mistakes that I've made, and then I'll move on to the blunders. Seid ihr bereit? Dann los geht's. Let's kick off by describing what we shall call the classroom mindset. The way our education system works is by teaching us in courses. We're told to attend the lessons a couple of times a week, do our homework, and then pass the exam at the end of the year. After we're done with that subject, we just close the books, place them on some dusty shelf, never to be reopened again. This system is pervasive, ranging from elementary school up to university. As such, it becomes the default learning method that we tend to extrapolate to anything we want to learn. Consequently, when we learn languages, we are very inclined to follow this very same approach. We will probably look for a language learning course that has a defined structure and that provides us with the necessary learning materials. You just have to attend the group lessons, do your homework, and you can be assured that you're going to reach the desired level. Back in the day, I was also among those who followed this approach. However, and despite the advantages that a structured system might have, I believe that certain features of the system are partly the reason as to why most of us get a wrong perspective when learning languages. Or at least it can explain my 3 main language learning mistakes, the biggest one of them being my lack of long-term orientation. Language learning is an open-ended project. There are always new words to be learned, interesting sayings to discover, and new phrasal verbs to know. Polyglots are aware of this. They, well, I guess I should say we, have adopted the mindset of constant learners, of never being satisfied with our level. We will not stop learning a language after obtaining the Cambridge certificate, the DELF or the DELE. Nonetheless, I've only adopted this mindset relatively recently. Back in the day, I used to regard language learning as a goal, and that goal was called exam. The classroom mindset would make me focus on passing the examination. After successfully overcoming it and reaching the level I wanted, I would just stop learning the language. I'd not make the effort to improve the level I had acquired or to keep working on the language on my own. Thus, bit by bit, it would get rustier and rustier. This was certainly the case with my Swedish and my Russian. After I finished relearning Swedish at age 20, I've rarely used the language. 7 years have gone by and my level is more or less the same than it was back then. But if I had done marginal improvements over the years, it would be excellent by now. Something similar happened with my Russian. I had like a 3-year break from the language, and when I decided to retake it, it took me around 2 months to reach the same level I had before dropping out. Now, with a little bit of perspective, I've come to realize my mistake and have taken some actions to prevent this from happening again. These measures consist of leaving some time every year to review the languages that I already know. I do this in 2 ways, what we shall call the extensive and the intensive approaches. The extensive approach consists of doing a little bit on a regular basis in order to maintain the level of a language. For example, to preserve my level of Italian, I have a language exchange every week. This takes me less than 1 hour and a half per week, both to attend the lesson and to review the vocabulary. For my French, I just speak to my flatmate and try to listen to some podcast every now and then. And with regards to my German, well, I live in Germany, so I'm exposed to the language every day. The intensive approach consists of undertaking an important endeavor in that language, but very concentrated once a year. This is the method I try to follow with my Swedish. I usually go to Sweden every year, so during the time I'm there and maybe during the week before, in order to warm up, I try to get a lot of exposure to the language. Or if I happen not to go there, then I've decided that I'm going to read 1 book in Swedish, just 1. I believe that both of these approaches are a very time-efficient way of preventing your language levels from dropping and of making some marginal improvements over time. But learning a language in a classroom not only makes us lack a long-term view, it also makes us too reliant on the materials provided by the teacher. We just follow her command when she tells us to read chapter 7 or to do exercise 3.2. In the classroom environment, we delegate the decision-making power of choosing the learning materials to the teacher. This certainly has its advantages because we don't have to worry about doing it ourselves. But the downside to this is that we are not cultivating the habit of looking for our own language learning materials. I could understand this mindset 20 years ago. Back then, finding materials in a foreign language would certainly have been very costly and challenging. The internet did not exist, so if you were trying to find a specific book in, say, Danish or Japanese, it would have been like trying to find a needle in a haystack, even if you lived in a Western metropolis. But nowadays we have access to a virtually infinite amount of resources. Now, if you want to practice some listening, you don't have to restrain yourself to the amount of cassettes that your local library has. Instead, you have access to high quality audios in almost any conceivable language, which by the way you can listen to from wherever you are with this little thing here. Or for finding the textbook that you're looking for, you just have to make a few clicks and Amazon Prime it. Or you can also read the news in your target language. And guess what? Most of this abundance is completely free. Are you currently exploding this ocean of material? Well, I certainly wasn't. Due to the classroom mindset, I would just stick to the materials of the textbook. I could have watched some Swedish movies, listened to some Swedish songs, or read some Swedish articles, but I did none of that. Luckily, I've greatly improved in this regard. Now I try to read some books, listen to podcasts, and follow some YouTube channels in all the languages. But still, I think I could do more to this end. Maybe I could look for groups of people in my city that speak the languages I'm trying to learn, look for more language exchange partners, or maybe I could start taking individual online lessons. Wait, I'm already doing that, and I think I should have started earlier. The classroom mindset may make us think that being in a room with a bunch of other people is the best way to learn. Or even if that is not the case, we automatically resort to it when we want to work on some extracurricular skill. From my own experience though, one-to-one lessons are a way more efficient learning method. After quitting group classes 3 years ago and switching to private lessons, I've never gone back to the classroom. I will explain this topic in more depth in an upcoming video, but as of now, let me briefly outline why I deem individual tuition to be superior to group sessions with the following 3 arguments. The most important one to me is that you can do loads of speaking. Speaking a language at a great level is probably my top priority when learning a foreign tongue. For one, because it allows me to fulfill my main goal when learning a foreign language, which is to be able to interact with native speakers in a conversation. And secondly, because having a conversation in a foreign tongue is one of the flow activities I enjoy the most. But reaching that fluent level is no easy task. You need to speak, and you need to speak a lot. Nonetheless, when you do a group lesson, you barely have the chance to utter a sentence. In that situation, it is the teacher the one that does all the talking. And if you happen to speak, it will merely be a response to a question posed by the instructor. And that cannot be considered a conversation practice. On the contrary, if you take one-to-one lessons, you can practice real conversations with your tutor and even make that the focus of the lesson if you want to. This way, you can improve your speaking skills way faster. Secondly, you can tailor the class to your specific needs. You can adapt the lesson to your goals, be it to reach a conversational level or to polish your business writing. You'll also have more leeway to decide which kind of topics you will deal with in the classroom. If you're interested in astrophysics, gardening, or cinema, you can easily work on materials related to these subjects. You can also choose the schedule that suits your lifestyle better, instead of being forced to attend the traditional 6 to 8 p.m. evening sessions. And you can also ask the tutor to be more demanding in case you want to reach a high level in a language in a short amount of time. And finally, you do not have to commute. You can go to your room 1 minute before your class starts instead of having to go outside to the cold winter to take the subway 20 minutes go and return. You can instead use the time you spared reading some book or watching some videos of the Uruguayan Polyglot. From the 3 previous advantages, having the individual attention of a native speaker for around 30 minutes to practice speaking is probably the most important one. Not to mention the ability to postpone the class if I'm busy at work, or to have the lesson at weird times, such as for instance 10 p.m. or Saturday morning if I need to. To be honest, I don't think I'll ever go back to the classroom. So that was it for today. Has any of these mistakes resonated with you? If that is the case, do not hesitate to let me know in the comment section below. And stay tuned for the videos that are about to come. See you soon.